Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, ISCJ. Hope everyone is doing well, inshallah. We'll give it just a couple of seconds here as we go live for today's episode of On the Shoulders of Giants. Today we'll be discussing ar-Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, who is one of the 10 that is promised Jannah. And those are the Sahabi that we've been covering in the past several episodes. We had taken 1 week break. And now, inshallah, we'll be continuing again. So, inshallah, bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Ameen. So, as I said, once again, welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants. Today we're covering ar-Rahman ibn Auf. He is one of the Ashara Mubashirin. The Prophet ﷺ was actually delivered by his mother. So when Amina, the mother of the Prophet ﷺ, was pregnant with Sayyidina Rasulullah ﷺ, the mother of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, who was from the same tribe as Amina, the mother of the Prophet ﷺ, she is the one that physically delivered the Prophet ﷺ. So there was that connection to the Nabi ﷺ that Abdurrahman ibn Auf had in the beginning. And these were the pre-Darul Arqam time. So this is even before Islam was being preached in the house of Al-Arqam, that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he approached Abdurrahman bin Auf, and it said that he was 10 years younger than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he knew of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq's good characters, his manners, and so on. And so when he was approached by Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq about entering Islam and what Islam is about, he immediately accepted. And he was so eager to learn from the Prophet ﷺ that he went to him right away, and he wanted to be with him all the time. And what happened was that in those days, these were the days of torture and persecution early on in Mecca. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf was one of the big targets. And so when the opportunity came for him to go to Ethiopia, he was one of the ones that took that opportunity and left. And when the rumor came out that things have gotten a little bit better for the Muslims, he actually came back, and he actually went on the second envoy to Ethiopia as well. So he emigrated to Ethiopia twice. It was said that when he took the Shahada and when he converted to Islam, he was one of the top 8 of the Muslims at the time. So this is very, very early on. Now, when he found out that the Prophet ﷺ was going to Medina, and this is the time of the Hijrah, the Quraysh, they got wind of this. And they said that you can go, right? And what we know about Abdurrahman bin Auf, of course, is that he was an extremely successful businessman. He was rich, right? And he was somebody that earned and gave and earned and gave. That is really, in a nutshell, the story of his life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with immense wealth. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But when he was leaving Mecca to go to Medina and to make that hijrah, the Quraysh, they ganged up on him and said that you can't leave with all of this wealth. You literally will disrupt the economy of Mecca. And so they stripped him of all of his wealth, and he actually left Mecca as a destitute, as somebody that was basically penniless, and he goes to Medina. And when the Muhajirun, when they arrived in Medina, the Prophet ﷺ, he set up a brotherhood system where one of the the people that had traveled from the Muhajirun would be partnered with the Ansar, with those that were already living in Medina, so that the Ansar could help them get acclimated with Medina, help them get settled in, and get back to some sort of level of normalcy that they had experienced in Mecca. And so he partners him with Sa'd ibn Rabi. And Sa'd ibn Rabi was the wealthiest of the Ansar. And so much so, he was also generous. And what he said is that the people of Medina, I am the richest amongst all of them. You can have half of my wealth. So he offers half of his wealth to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. He says that, you see all of my properties, you can have half of that. And by the way, I'm married to 2 women. I have 2 wives. I will divorce one of them, and after her waiting period, you can marry her as well. And some of us might think, that kind of sounds a little bit ludicrous. That's like out of this world. That's not something that I could even imagine or fathom doing. Is if I was married to multiple women, divorcing one of them and giving them up to another man. And this was the way of the Ansar. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ is what. And Sa'd ibn Rabi was somebody radiallahu anhu who encapsulated this attribute perfectly. And so Abdurrahman bin Auf, he gives the famous statement. He says that may Allah bless your children and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your wealth, but please show me to marketplace. Show me the marketplace. And this was, his way of saying that, I'm not a freeloader. I am here. I have 2 hands and I have the faculty of my thinking. Show me the marketplace so I can go out there and earn my living. And so Abdurrahman bin Auf, he goes to the marketplace and he's a merchant and he's trading. And it didn't take him years. It didn't take him even months. In just a matter of days, he had amassed enough wealth that he quickly got himself married. And so, a few days later, the Prophet ﷺ, he sees Abdurrahman bin Auf in the marketplace, and he notices that Abdurrahman bin Auf, he has these kind of like tribal markings, and he has this really nice scent on and a little bit of a spring in his step, and he says, MashaAllah, Abdurrahman bin Auf, what's going on with you? And he says that, Ya Rasulullah, I got married. Now, think about this. If you didn't tell your best friends, let alone the messenger of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who's amongst you, he's in your company, he was not invited to your wedding, would you speak to your friends again if they didn't invite you to their wedding, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he could have easily said, hey, where was my invitation? I only happen to be the messenger of God, right? You're following the message that I've brought, and I've brought you from darkness into light, and so on and so forth. But the Prophet ﷺ didn't do any of that. He didn't give him any sort of guilt trip, or was he even angry or mad or upset with Abdurrahman bin Auf. And this is a lesson to be extrapolated, that when somebody comes to of means, and they are able to, and they are intelligent enough, and they are responsible enough, that they should get married very quickly, right? That they should hasten the nikah and not delay it, right? Sometimes in our, societal structure, we're told that, first get your bachelor's degree and then go on and get your master's. And sometimes, parents, particularly immigrant parents, and of course, there's good intention behind it, right? We love our parents. It's not to say that, but they'll say that really get yourself settled, get yourself on your feet, go get your PhD, or continue with your further education. And the Prophet ﷺ and the companions are teaching us that getting married at an early age, when somebody is responsible and able to do so, is not an impediment to continuing to better yourself economically. It's not an impediment. If anything, it's probably a means of motivation for somebody to go out and earn, because now they have somebody else to take care of them. And again, the prerequisite there is that somebody that is come of means, and they are responsible, intelligent enough, and mature enough to carry on a marriage. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he says to him, and he advises him, Abdurrahman, you should do a small party, get the people together, the young, the old, the rich, the poor, everybody, and have a blessed ceremony, what we know as the walima, and invite people and feed them. And Abdurrahman bin Auf, he has the people there, and they celebrate. And the Prophet ﷺ, he makes a dua for Abdurrahman bin Auf that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses him in his wealth and his family. And this was probably the turning point, because already Abdurrahman bin Auf had gotten himself, remember, he came as somebody that was completely destitute and penniless from Mecca, because it was all stripped up from him when he made the pilgrimage to Medina. And now he's somebody that's getting back on his feet and quickly starting to amass some wealth. And when the Prophet ﷺ made this dua, he said that wallahi, the world came to my feet. The wealth of this dunya came to my feet. And it was said that even if he picked up a rock, that he would find gold underneath it. And so this was Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. He participated in all of the battles. You could say that he was somebody that, of course, he earned and gave and earned and gave. But was he just somebody that was a philanthropist and said that, okay, now, I'll take care of the financing of the battles and the wars and the Ghazwa, but you guys, you go out and do the dirty work, right? No, he was there in Badr. He is from Ahlu Badr. He is from the people that fought in the Battle of Badr. He is from the people that fought in the Battle of Uhud. And as a matter of fact, he was there with the Prophet ﷺ, and he suffered 20 wounds in the Battle of Uhud, so much so that he had a limp for the rest of his life. In the Battle of Tabuk, he gave so much wealth, right? There was an incident where Umar gave half his wealth, and Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq gave his full amount of wealth, and they still needed to gather more money and resources to go into the next battle. And Abdul Rahman ibn Auf came, with the rest of it, what was needed. And this was somebody that was, a financier of all the battles of the Prophet ﷺ. So not only was he funding the battles, but he was also fighting in the battles and in the trenches with the rest of the Muslims. But the money was never in his heart. It was always in his hands. And one occasion, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, he freed 30 of his own slaves, right? He was somebody that wore simple clothes. He had simple means of transportation, his camels, and so on and so forth. He is somebody that was given the unique distinction of leading the Prophet ﷺ in prayer. He led the Prophet ﷺ in prayer. So the Prophet ﷺ was coming back from a journey. Sayyidina Bilal had made the adhan, and Abdul Rahman ibn Auf says, we have to pray. And so he goes and he starts to lead the prayer. And the Prophet ﷺ, he joins them after the first rak'ah was already over. And so when the prayer finished, the Prophet ﷺ, he stood up and he completed his prayer. And in that, he was teaching us the fiqh of how to finish your prayer if you have missed a rak'ah. So Abdul Rahman ibn Auf is one of the people that led the Prophet ﷺ in prayer. The other, of course, is Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. He was extremely knowledgeable. And once he was traveling with Sayyidina Umar to Asham, to Syria, modern day Syria. And in that area, and this is very relevant to today, right? Because of the coronavirus lockdown, there was a plague in Syria. And when Abdul Rahman finds out about this, he consults with Sayyidina Umar, and Umar consults with him for some advice. And he says, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say that if you know of a land where there is a sickness and a plague, then do not go into it. And if you already happen to be there, do not leave from it. And this was the concept of quarantine 1400 years ago. That Abdul Rahman ibn Auf is talking that the Prophet ﷺ taught him this, the concept of quarantine. And this is the Prophet ﷺ, of course, we know was not some learned epidemiologist or infectious disease specialist, but this was the intelligence and the knowledge and the ilham that was given to the Prophet ﷺ through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to know how to deal with the plague when you are faced with one. He once sold land for 40,000 dinars. And this was somebody that wouldn't keep the wealth himself. He immediately would go out and distribute. So he went and gave a ton of that wealth to the tribe of Amina, the mother of the Prophet ﷺ. He also gave each of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ a gift, massive amounts of wealth and gold coins and so on and so forth. And then he would go out and distribute this wealth to the poor. The poor knew him. They knew him by name. He actually considered it an honor to be in the company of the poor. And so this was, sometimes in our communities, right? You see cliques forming, and a lot of those cliques and groups, sometimes the tie of those groups is the socioeconomic status, right? And that just sometimes happens naturally. But Abdul Rahman ibn Auf was somebody who would go out of his way to break these type of societal structures and actually sit with the poor. And it wasn't that he felt that he was, of course, we know the narration of the Prophet ﷺ that the giving hand is better than the receiving hand, and certainly he was from the giving hand, but he saw it upon himself as an honor to sit with the poor and be amongst the poor. And this is something that we can also learn from. There was once an episode where the people of Medina heard the land trembling, and they thought that it was an earthquake, and 700 camels had come into Medina. And Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, she made a dua that when she found out that this is ar-Rahman ibn Auf's camels, she made a dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him with everything in this world that he has, but put barakah and give him more, even more in the afterlife. Upon hearing this, Rahman ibn Auf said that these camels and everything, all of the wealth and everything that they are stocked with, they are fully loaded, that whoever is needy in Medina can come and take from it. Talha radiallahu anhu, he said that Rahman ibn Auf, he sponsored all of Medina, that 1/3 of Medina, whatever debts that they had, Rahman ibn Auf took care of their debts. And 1/3 had loans from Rahman ibn Auf so that they can take care of their everyday living and things like that. And Rahman ibn Auf, he even forgave those loans. So people would borrow from him and then he would forgive it. And 1/3 were on sadaqah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he told us the best of you are those who benefit the people. Rahman ibn Auf most certainly inculcates this narration. He looked after the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. After the passing of the Nabi ﷺ, he sponsored the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, taking care of all of their needs. He provided them with the best of camels for transportation wherever they needed to get to, and they would be decked out and completely decorated, and the wives of the Prophet ﷺ would travel. So he took it upon himself to be the caretaker of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. When he was close to his death, he started to free his slaves one by one, and he started to take portions of his wealth, and he gave everybody who was alive at that time that participated in Badr, he gave a massive portion of his wealth to them, and then he gave a massive portion of his wealth again to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. And they would often, they trusted him so much, they used to make dua for Rahman ibn Auf, and he gave to numerous causes. Right, this is somebody that's thinking about his legacy and what he was going to leave behind. He would earn and give, and finally, he gave to his family. He had 4 wives. Each wife received 3.5% of his wealth. Every single person that he touched was left wealthy. So not only did he attain wealth, but he would give that away. Once he was seen crying during a fast, when they were about to break their fast, and he's sitting in front of this, really elaborate spread of food, and he starts to cry, and they asked him, Ya Rahman, why are you crying? What's wrong? And he says, I was remembering Musab ibn Umair and how we buried him at Uhud. And he barely had any clothes to even cover him. He had nothing to cover him, that we had to, when we tried to cover his feet, his face would be exposed. When we covered his face, his feet would be exposed. And Musab ended with nothing. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he was given the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he never had food like this, a spread like this. And he was the messenger of God. And I fear for myself, that the wealth that I have been given, that I'm going to be taken into account, and it will delay me meeting my companions in the afterlife. And so he would share that food with the people. Aisha radiallahu anha, she granted him to be buried to the next to the Prophet ﷺ, and Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar in her own house. And he refused that very generous offer. He was somebody that chose Uthman to be the leader before dying. This is after the Khilafah of Sayyidina Umar, after Sayyidina Umar was assassinated. Although Rahman ibn Auf could have taken that position, and he was very well qualified, and many would have backed him, he he rescinded, and he actually helped to choose Uthman and prop him up to be the third Khalifa of Islam. And Sayyidina Ali, he says that the janazah of Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, right, was so massive that Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, he saw a dream that the people of Medina were behind him. The people of Medina were behind him. And like we said, Talha said that he was somebody that sponsored the people of Medina, right? He had good relations with everybody. He either, you know, 1/3 of them, he paid their debts. 1/3 of them, he gave them loans and forgave it. 1/3 of them that, you know, were receiving his sadaqah, right? And remember the episode when the 700 camels came and he distributed everything for the people. So he had the du'as and the blessings of the people, that his janazah was packed. It was packed. He left a real legacy that Sayyidina Ali, he said, wajabat lahul jannah. That Jannah became mandatory upon him. Jannah became mandatory upon Sayyidina Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. So this was somebody, you know, he was a philanthropist. He was somebody that not only did he give, but he participated in all of the battles. He was somebody that, you know, led the Prophet ﷺ, one of two people that led the Prophet ﷺ in prayer, and he sponsored the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. Remember, he came penniless and destitute from Mecca because they stripped him of all his wealth. He earned everything in Medina, and then he gave it all away during his death. This is the life of Sayyidina Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us also the means of wealth, and you know, for us to remember and really ponder upon the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that all of you will be asked about where did you earn your wealth, about your wealth, where did you earn it, and how did you spend it? Where did you earn it, and how did you spend it? And you know, they used to ask Sayyidina Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, he said 50% of the halal income that I could have made, I left that alone for fear that it was touched by riba. For fear that it was touched by riba. So we know that he was somebody that earned halal income. And you know, there's nothing wrong with being a person of means, of working hard and having business and jobs and earning a lot of money. But the point is to then use that to be a conduit to do good for Islam, and to build institutions, and to and give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Abdul Rahman ibn Auf did. And so he earned his place amongst the 10 who are promised Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us his company and the company of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the afterlife. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. Barakallahu li wa lakum wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.